The Dershow.
This is not an isolated situation. We know Los Angeles has been a center of all kinds of horrible riots. Right after Rodney King, there were riots in which a white truck driver was almost killed right on camera with black rioters hitting him on the head with bricks. And the state and city authorities didn't stop it. And then, after the Rodney King case, that happened. It happened after the George Floyd case. It I know it almost happened in the OJ case. I was there. And in preparation for the verdict, I wasn't there on the day of the verdict because it was Yom Kippur. But on the day of the expected verdict, there were all kinds of attempts to bring out local, state, maybe national people, because if he had been convicted, they were anticipating a major riot. You have the mayor of Los Angeles, and you have Congresswoman Pelosi and Congresswoman Waters, who herself has been responsible for causing riots, saying, "Oh, they're not riots; they're just peaceful. They're just peaceful." Yeah, occasionally you see somebody, throw a rock at the head of a nice person. That's just passing. Or occasionally you see somebody throw a Molotov cocktail at cars. Well, that's just, children will be children, people will be people. No, no, no. These are terribly dangerous activities that that can easily spread. Copycatting is a very common phenomenon when you have these kinds of riots and demonstrations. And we don't know much about the rioters. I mean, usually there are three groups of rioters. There are the panty raid people. The people, oh, everybody's having fun. Let's go out and have fun. Let's go on a panty raid. They don't know what's going on. They don't care what's going on. It's good. Maybe they'll meet somebody. It's social. Particularly young people join for joining. Then there are the actual people who may be affected, and I don't blame them for being critical. They're worried about their families. They're worried about an excessive use of the power to deport. So I understand that. And then there are the professional agitators. These are people that sit and wait for any opportunity and grab onto every cause in order to be disruptive and ultimately to bring about the end of the United States. These are revolutionaries. Code Pink, which obviously gets funded by the Chinese Communist Party and other radical anarchist. They're always there. They're always ready. They hooked onto the civil rights movement. They didn't care about black people. They hooked onto the civil rights movement. They hooked onto the gay rights movement. These are not people who care about any of these causes. They care about only one thing, bringing down the United States. And they'll hook onto any cause to bring down the United States. And some of these professionals are paid. They're funded. Their activities are financed by radical groups, some foreign, some domestic. But we know that these riots are not spontaneous. They are often very well planned. We know that after October 7th, immediately these tents, they all look the same. They were bought probably from the same company, sprung up on college campuses. It wasn't just spontaneous. Obviously, there was preparation and involvement. Look, the right to protest is very important. It's fundamental. It's in our Constitution. It's, free speech is not only free speech in our Constitution. It's freedom of assembly and freedom to protest wrongdoing by the government. Those are core values, but they have to be done peaceably. Throwing a Molotov cocktail is not protected under the First Amendment. Throwing rocks at an ICE person is not protected under the First Amendment. The real question, and I think that's something that's going to be reconsidered by the Supreme Court, is what about the people who are standing next to the people with the rocks and yelling at them, throw it, revolution now, intifada, globalize the intifada, do it now. Is that protected speech? Under Brandenburg, it's not. If it's incitement to immediate violence, intended to incite immediate violence, but that's very narrow. It's very hard to prove that. There have been very, very few convictions since Brandenburg for incitement to violence, even though we know it occurs. And we know that often the violence we see can be traced to people who have advocated it. Advocacy is protected speech. Incited it. Incitement is protected speech unless the incitement is for immediate, imminent violence and lawlessness. Again, hard to prove. So we'll see. Now, I don't know what's causing the riots in Los Angeles. I'm sure there are many, many, many causes. Of course, each side has a narrative. It's interesting. You watch television. I flip the channels all the time because I can't ever get the truth from one channel. So you see CNN and it shows peaceful corners. It's as if, you just can walk down the street and no problem. So CNN says there's no riots, and they interview, Pelosi, and they interview Waters who basically demanded and incited violence if there had been an acquittal in the Chauvin case. But you see them standing on the corner, standing on the corner, watching all the girls go by. That's what it looks like. That's CNN. Then you turn to Fox and, oh my God, it's World War III. There are people throwing rocks. There are people throwing Molotov cocktails. And if you're just watching one channel, you're seeing one narrative. And it's when you see CNN, it's hard to understand why the president would order troops. And when you see Fox, you wonder why the president didn't order them sooner and more of them. And so, the media is so responsible for our distorted views of what's going on. I just don't see any evidence whatsoever that sending in the troops has exacerbated the situation or has caused the violence. Now, it's possible that when you send in the troops and then you have political agitators on the left saying, oh, they're sending the troops, that's terrible, it's going to end democracy, and then people riot as a result of the troops being sent in, but not as the result of the troops being sent in. They riot as the result of people on the other side inciting violence because the troops have been sent in. I think Senator Fetterman essentially made that point. He's been one of the few honest Democrats. Look, my view is when you have a situation like this, you're going to see this combination of factors that cause the violence, and you're not going to be able to pinpoint any one element. You're not going to be able to say like Newsom, oh, it's all Trump's fault, nor are you going to be able to say like Trump, it's all Newsom's fault. It's a combination. It's primarily the fault of the agitators who turn legitimate protests into illegitimate violence, because we can distinguish free speech from not unprotected violence. We can distinguish that as academics or as even just intellectuals or ordinary citizens, people watching television. We know it when we see it. But for other people who see only part of it, the partial truth, it's very hard to tell. And so if you ask somebody, who's caused this riot? What's the cause of it? The second question you have to ask them is, what TV do you watch? And if you find out what TV they're watching and what media they're looking at, what internet they're looking at, you'll be able to predict pretty clearly what they think. Because if they're seeing violence, then they're going to say, gee, president did the right thing. And if they're seeing nonviolence, then they're going to say, maybe the only reason to send in these people was to provoke violence.